Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're joining. I had to look at my clock here. My name is John Carroll. I am the CEO and founder of the Service Council, and welcome to today's presentation of the inService podcast series brought to you by CareAR, a Xerox company. I would be remiss in thanking CareAR in terms of their many contributions to our organization. We are so pleased to have Sam Weisberg, president and co-founder or founder, excuse me, of CareAR, who has joined our technology advisory board. I'm also pleased to have on today's webinar his counterpart and partner in crime, Sajeel Hussain. Sajeel is a big part of how and why CareAR has taken a leadership position in the field service and broader service management space. A warm welcome to you, Sajeel. I wanted to welcome you to today's podcast.
Thank you, John, and pleasure to be over here today.
Outstanding. So before we begin, just briefly, if you are listening to today's podcast, we encourage you to get involved in the discussion. We want to make this as interactive as possible. And so if you'd like to comment, react, if you'd like to submit questions to our listening audience and our listening, our guest here today, we welcome you to do so. And we'll try and make sure that we get to all the questions that we can get to inside today's discussion. And if you're looking to reference back today's podcast, you can do so on all the different podcast channels that you get it from, all the different providers. So you can find it there. You can also find it on our website. It will be consumable on our website. So please do listen back and please participate in today's discussion. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So why don't we go ahead and jump in? So a little bit of personal, professional background. Why don't we spend a little bit of time just introducing our listening audience here, Sajeel, to yourself and a little bit of an overview of CareAR. That'd be helpful.
Sure. So a little bit about my background. I've spent probably about 25 years plus in building and running software businesses, both in larger companies and in smaller startups. A lot of my focus has been in the communications and the collaboration space. I worked in companies like Nortel, Avaya, and also smaller startups like ThroughPoint and CafeX. And in my current role as the CRO, my responsibility is to drive overall sales, marketing, as well as partnerships within CareAR. And based in Dallas, father of three kids, two teenagers, and one about to be a teenager. So I got my hands full. Love playing sports if I'm not working or if I'm not on a plane. I tend to rotate between tennis, between golf, and competitive table tennis. Notice I didn't say ping pong; it's competitive table tennis. So that's what I do. And maybe I'll spend a little bit more time talking about CareAR and kind of the journey that we've taken, just so that the audience has sort of that good context in terms of what we do and what we're all about. So CareAR is a company. This was formed about 3 years and change, and the mission of CareAR is all about driving service experience transformation. And what we do is, it's pretty straightforward. We are all about providing what we call an AI and AR, augmented reality powered service experience management platform, right? That fundamentally allows end customers, your service employees, to digitally and visually resolve issues in the most efficient manner, right? And by doing so, we're not only providing greater operational efficiencies, right? So things like deflecting on-site visits, what we call truck rolls, or calls into the service desk, but more importantly, we're providing a much enhanced and an improved customer experience, right? And so when CareAR was formed, we had one aim in mind, right? To bridge the gap that exists today between the service experience and customer experience, and especially in the enterprise world. I mean, we've all been there. We're all consumers or customers in the consumer world, right? And so whether it was last night as I came back from a trip, I was doing an Uber Eats and took an Uber, came home, or if it's ordering a package on Amazon, Alexa tells you everything that you need to know. When is your package going to be delivered, exactly what time, or if you're taking an Uber, we all know, right? We get that level of specificity and an amazing customer experience. Now, contrast that to a service call or a service experience in the enterprise world, right? When your modem goes down, when your internet's down, when your washing machine's broken, that dreaded call you got to make into the service desk of your cable company. Well, Mr. Hussain, you're going to have someone come to your house in the next 4 days. That's our best available appointment. It's going to be this window between 1 and 5. And what happens is when the person shows up, the tech shows up, it either takes 60 seconds for him to fix, and you're wondering, why could you not tell me to do this? And I would have done it. Or the person doesn't know how to fix it because he's junior and he needs, another person, an expert to come and help him out. And so that's what we want to fix. We want CareAR, we want to be the Alexa for service experience. We want to be that platform, and that's our focus, right? How do we not only transform the way services are delivered, but how do we make it in such a way that expertise can be available instantly, or expertise can be easily accessible at any time you want? And expertise could be a remote expert who can help the tech on site remotely, as if he's standing side by side and giving those step-by-step instructions. Or expertise could be delivered with self-solve instructions that are served up when you scan a QR code or something like that, right? So that was the mission. That was the thesis behind forming CareAR, and that continues to be our focus. Now, just a little bit about how did Xerox acquire CareAR and why, right? So just a little bit on that, where Xerox was facing a similar challenge, right? I mean, if you look at it, global operations, 10,000 or more techs in the field, global, and 50% of Xerox's workforce is retirement eligible. And this is not just a problem for Xerox. This is across several large global 2,000 companies. And so when you have new people joining in and the digital natives that are coming in, the question is, how do you make someone who's been in the job for 30 days perform at the level of a 30-year veteran, right? That's the problem we're trying to solve. That is the problem that Xerox is trying to solve. And so when technology like CareAR comes along, that can fundamentally not only provide these level of efficiencies, but also utilize those experts that are scarce in the most efficient manner, then that just becomes a better together fit. And so CareAR was acquired by Xerox. We are an independent entity. Our mission is to drive service experience transformation, not just for Xerox, which is customer one for us, but also do this across other companies across the board. So hopefully that sort of gives you, context about both CareAR, what our focus is, as well as where we've been in the journey with Xerox.
Yeah, you're addressing the market need, the primary market needs that we think are of utmost priority right now. So the concept of not having enough available talent, right? Capacity issues and shifting left, as we're going to introduce the topic of today's discussion, to get closer to the customer and to resolve issues earlier in the cycle, in that service life cycle, if you will. And there's a couple things playing here. One is there's not enough talent available to support all these instances, these customer instances. The customer is demanding a more immediate response, in many cases, an opportunity to self-serve, because consumerization is driving them towards that.
Right.
And, oh, by the way, we're trying to build our service business to be more responsible in practice, right? So when you avoid dispatch, you're reducing fuel emissions, carbon emissions, all the things that are impacting ESG initiatives and sustainability initiatives, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. So I love what you're doing. I want to make one quick comment to share in your plight with a teenager. I have a teenager at home. It is wonderful, all the time wonderful. So I share your pain there. Let's go ahead and shift forward. And let's talk about today's concept of shifting left, which it's a phrase that, quite honestly, I'm unfamiliar with. I was unfamiliar with when we were started to scope this discussion. And I wanted to allow you to introduce it, but it was first used, as I did some secondary research on where it derived from, in the early 2000s to describe the practice of intending to find and prevent defects early in the software delivery process. It came from the ITIL world. Is that right?
Yeah, it was, but the you're exactly right. As you look at the software delivery process and the concept of shift work left, the analogies and the parallel or the parallelism in context of service delivery is exactly the same concept. And maybe I can spend a little bit of time sort of talking about that in context of field service delivery and the lens through which we look at. Today, as you may see, on average, 1 in 3 of service calls results in a truck roll. When we say truck roll, this is an on-site dispatch. And that's the most expensive way of serving your customer, right? Think about it. A truck roll could be anywhere from $200 to, in some cases, I've heard as high as $1,400 because, a truck roll could actually be people getting onto the plane and going and serving their customer too, right? So instead of having this most expensive customer interaction through an on-site visit, would you not be better off having a service desk agent, if they had the tools to be able to remotely troubleshoot or diagnose what the issue is and actually fix it, right? But not every service call actually would result in a remote resolution, because in some cases maybe a part needs to be replaced. But there are majority of the calls that still could be taken care of by just having a service desk agent remotely resolve the issue. Even better, could you not have a virtual agent like a bot be able to point the customer to the right knowledge base article or some self-solve instruction to be able to fix it? Or even better, could you not have an interaction, a self-solve interaction where the customer is able to interact with the device, with the machine, or whatever product that they're working with, and have those step-by-step instructions served up in their field of view in the most intuitive manner, so that they don't even need to reach into the enterprise, whether it's a virtual agent, whether it's a service desk agent. You avoid that call altogether. So the theme, as you can see, is that you're trying to shift and get as close and closer to the end customer so they can solve this on their own, and you're avoiding the most expensive customer interaction through a dispatch or through a truck roll. That's the concept of shifting left. And every time you kind of shift left, there is quantifiable business benefit, but at the same time, there is also a better customer satisfaction, because your customers don't need to deal with having people come to fixing their issue. You can take this a little ahead. You can take this a step further, where you can get more proactive and predictive about the issues even before they happen. Wouldn't it be better that you have an IoT sensor that tells you that maybe this product, based on the levels of whatever, right, this is about to fail, and therefore take some preventive action before it even fails, before it becomes an issue. So that's the trend we are seeing, and that's really where the parallelism of shift work left from a software delivery to a service delivery makes 100% sense. And that's really the focus of how we look at when we interact and we chalk out a path for service transformation for these enterprises.
That's a wonderful explanation. Very, very helpful. And gosh, it speaks to how we're tracking those organizations that are addressing all the challenges of talent shortage and supporting customers in the self-service journey. And to your point, dispatch-related costs continue to rise. Inflation is really impacting markets, and our research suggests that in some scenarios, in some industries where there's a high degree of sophistication in terms of asset, and the density of the customers is perhaps dispersed, which requires travel, to your point, the cost of dispatch can be $2,500 plus in many instances, multi-day, multi-site visit. So the complexity is also driving up the dispatch-related costs. And by the way, the importance of resolving issues in a remote setting, or better, getting more accurate triage and diagnosis, is so important to be efficient if you are required to dispatch, or a scenario where you have to dispatch someone. So we still hear a lot of no fault found issues. We still hear a lot of repeat visits,
Mhm.
callbacks, and obviously the holy grail being first time fix rate. How can we achieve better? I think what you're talking about here addresses that head on. So that's a pretty cool concept. Let's go ahead and go forward. I want you are talking to customers worldwide, and customers, prospects, and the market in general, and you're capturing trends, and we are as well, covering the market. And as we approach CY23 planning, the Service Council continues to track the prioritization of three critical pillars with respect to trends, one of which is people oriented. So we've talked a lot about that. So there's an engagement crisis. So that retirement crisis is only one part of the problem that's building a talent shortage. Retirement's going to continue to expand and grow. The Bureau of Labor Statistics suggests that it's going to double from 50 to 95 million, those executives that are over 65 by the year 2050. So that's going to continue to go up and to the right and be a challenge. But the engagement crisis is just as bad. We look at the data from the recent Voice of the Field Service Engineer survey, and 65% of Gen Z, 67% of Gen Y, and 54% of Gen X are either not sure they're going to be or won't be a field engineer for the duration of their career. And when we look at the aggregate, 40% of them are leaving the role within the next 3 years. Right. So that's right on top of us. So we're seeing a focus on engagement. We're seeing a focus on succession planning, new talent acquisition, career pathing. So there's a big focus on people. On the process, the second trend that we're tracking is process innovation that continues to happen, built around serving and supporting the customer the way they want it to be delivered to them, right? So customers are seeking personalization, they're seeking agility. They want you to know who they are. They want to be able to transition from one channel to the next seamlessly. And we're seeing a big focus internal to the service organization around connecting technical and functional roadmaps. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that moving forward. And then the third trend is technology. The technology continues to move towards less just modernization and more transformation, threading all these cool technologies together. And then what is the impact of that technology in a broader sense to the enterprise, right? There's so many tentacles to how technology can capture and disseminate information across the enterprise. So those are the three trends that we're tracking: people, process, technology, and we've all been looking at those over the years. Tell us some of the things you're hearing from customers, Sajeel. What are you hearing? I think you just left a major industry conference.
Yeah,
Probably some hot topics coming out of that.
yeah, and I'll talk about, I like the way you framed the people, process, technology. And what's fresh in my mind is just coming away from the conference. We were talking with, and I was having a sit down conversation with the team, with one of the heads of field services for this very large global organization, and talking with this person. He said, "Look, I've been with this company for 25 years, and the company's given me a lot. And right now, all these issues that you talked about, he was exactly saying the same thing: talent shortage. There is so much. There's experts who are there, and we make them. He used the word rented mules, but he's like, we use them so much. We drive them so hard, and the new digital natives and the new apprentices that are coming in, they need to get trained. And so he's like, his feedback was, how do I want to give back to the company? The company's been good to me. I want to give back to the company. And what I want to be able to do is leverage technology that we are seeing today, leverage augmented reality and all of these new pieces of technology, take out the fear factor within the enterprises, and provide this as a solution so that that becomes my legacy, right? That I can tell that I've left a mark on the company that's fundamentally being able to drive the sort of transformation that's needed with changing times. Anyway, that was just sort of an off the cuff factoid and conversation that I felt was very relevant to what we're talking about. But When I just kind of take a step back and look at, the conversations that I'm in personally as I'm talking to the heads of service operations, service delivery, or even COOs, um, here's what we've seen. We've seen a fundamental shift in the service operating model. And COVID's been an accelerant for this, but that shift is more from a reactive break fix model to more of a proactive, predictive, and self-solve operating model. And this is the guts, this is the core of service, what service experience management is frankly all about. So when we really coined, we'll take credit for coining the term, and we're CareAR is kind of like pioneering in this space. It's all about service experience management for us. It's all about putting that customer and service employee at the heart of the service experience. And so what we are able to look at, and which matches very well with the trends and some of the things that you talked about. There are four key elements and four key trends that keep coming, and then they become the core pillars of service experience management. The first one is all around people, empowering service employees. And these employees could be your frontline workers, they could be your service desk agents. The ability to equip them with tools so that they're able to remotely resolve issues in the best possible manner, whether it's leveraging augmented reality or other capabilities, doesn't matter, but it's all about people, empowering those service employees. And then capturing and sharing that institutional knowledge, which minimizes the impact of the aging and retiring workforce, becomes key, right? So that becomes one key theme, one key trend. The second one is all about creating those smarter assets. In fact, there was a recent survey that was done where nearly half the manufacturers are prioritizing creating new digital products and services to deliver those digital first customer experiences, right? So I mentioned earlier, think about the ability for you to walk up to a machine, scan the QR code, and then have these instructions, step-by-step instructions delivered, whether it's in AR format, in a digital format, in the palm of your hand. And then you can get a lot more savvy and leverage technologies like computer vision and machine learning and AI to provide that sort of visual verification to make sure that you're doing your steps right? So creating those smarter assets, but it all comes down to content, right? Having the right content at the point of need speeds up service resolution, right? And that becomes key. And so then you're avoiding the need to sift through irrelevant manuals, work instructions. All that takes time. So second thing is all about creating those smarter assets. The third one is the theme that's emerging is providing those connected insights, right? So insights could be served up from external systems, from IoT sensors, so that you can be more proactive and predictive about these issues. Anytime one of those MRI machines goes down, then your hospital operations are taking a big hit. We know the cost of downtime. So can you be more proactive and preventive about it? Enterprises would love to spend money on it because they know the impact and cost of downtime. So that's the third theme that we are seeing. And then lastly, it's about what I say, this is a big area, right, for us as well. It's about democratizing service experience creation. Can you give the power of creating these amazing service experiences that make sense for the customer, that make sense for service employees? Can you give that power of creating and maintaining and authoring these experiences to the enterprises itself? And so these are the big themes. Barring some of the other ones that you talked about, which naturally play in, ESG is a big one, right? Going for carbon neutrality, decreasing your environmental footprint by reducing those truck rolls, big focus areas. And then maybe the last one I would say is the need for training, management and knowledge management and training. This is, again, big, simulative training. And that these are sort of adjacent areas that are coming up, but they all fit very well into this overall theme that I talked about of service experience management.
That's a good capture for our listening audience. Thank you. I want to encourage our listening audience to react to submit questions to Sajeel. We'll try and make sure we find time to address those inside today's window of discussion. Yeah, I just want to build off of your conversation. I think one of the things that continues to prove itself out time and time again is the parallels between customer and employee.
Mhm.
Right? If you believe that the customer experience is heavily dependent on the employee experience, which I think there's plenty of research that suggests you should believe it, then we ought to be considering how do we measure engagement similarly across those two constituents, and how do we measure how well of a job we're doing in creating that experience.
Mhm.
If you look at, for example, customer satisfaction, the way it's been measured over time has evolved, right? It was traditionally CSAT, transactional and relationship surveys, moved into Net Promoter Score, would you recommend us? And now it's moved into this, how easy or how difficult was it for you to seek and receive support today, right? So this whole customer effort orientation. The same should be flipped on its head internal to the organization, thinking about the day in the life of an engineer, right? How difficult or how easy is it for the engineer to do their job? We asked field service engineers in the recent Voice of the Field Service Engineer survey, what don't you like about your job? And there are a couple of things that reared their ugly head once again. Paperwork and administrative tasks continues to be the number one, but the time finding information it has risen up to number two. So, all the time in the inefficiencies because information is not easily accessible continues to make their job difficult. And when we ask technicians, what do they do when they get stuck? They're still depending on a very low tech phone a friend method, which is very depleting to your efficiency methodologies, right? So you've got two engineers tied up on a call. If 20% of your work staff is getting stuck per day, and that's a 15-minute duration call, it equates to really big cost strain on your organization. So effort orientation in terms of measurement is one thing that we're continuing to track from a trending perspective. The other is right in line with what you're talking about, moving to proactive, right? How can we be proactive not only in the customer experience through all the cool things you talked about, connected devices and assets that predict issues before they happen, um, preventive maintenance dispatches that solve it before it's going to happen. We're also seeing the same thing happen internally, anomaly detection, where we're looking at our work staff, tracking, in a typical instance that should require a 2-hour visit, but it's taking 6 hours. That's an anomaly from a normal service delivery process. So something's wrong. We should proactively support that technician with something, some resource in order to help them, whether it's the available parts required or information and knowledge or collaboration with a colleague that might have the skill set and the empirical knowledge to help support them in that process. So I love how you framed all those trends because we're seeing similar things, and it really speaks right directly to our research. Let's go ahead and move forward in the conversation. We're about at the half mark here. We'll keep going, and we'll see how much we can fit into the hour here.
Yeah.
What innovative strategies or principles do you see at organizations that are doing an effective job at building a future-proof field service strategy that addresses some of these trends?
Right, and maybe just as a continuation of the story that I was talking about, from the event, and as I was talking with this customer, the fact that he's taking it on himself and being that champion to really figure out a way to drive that level of service transformation, is so key, right? So the executive sponsorship, that champion to support change management and that transformation is fundamental. Everywhere we look at the difference between companies where you're successfully be able to deliver that level of transformation is you need that sponsorship, you need that champion that will help internally advocate the need and and the business case and that's behind this transformation that the customer and the journey that the customer or the enterprise would go through. Um, the other big thing is to enable the sort of this dynamic service resolution model where physical presence is not the only path for addressing these issues or failures, That concept that is something that needs that the enterprises customers need to get it right. It's not just about efficiency, it's not just about operating efficiency, but also to prioritize your customer satisfaction, your customer and field experience. That also needs to be equally weighed in. And the other thing that we see is that what I call there's a changing of the guards happening, right? Where now you have the sort of the older generation, at the verge of either retirement, and as they exit the workforce, and you have the new digital natives that are coming in, you got to find ways to attract and retain that talent. And you have to have a relentless focus on higher customer satisfaction. So the companies that understand that empathize with it, that enable these new incoming digital entrants with the right tools and technologies to be able to serve better and serve their customers better are the ones that succeed. That becomes an amazing competitive differentiator. I mean, you talked about all of those trends in which retaining talent is so difficult, and the tenure is so low because they just move on. And they don't see themselves sticking in that job for a long time. And a lot of this is about these issues. Are you enabling them with the right tools that are more in tune with what they used to, right? And then I would say, lastly, having a very clear view in terms of the KPIs, the goals, the metrics, and not being afraid to try new technology. Now, not just for the sake of trying technology, but being able to drive those measurable outcomes. The more clearer you are, then you have a better chance of seeing success. And remember, I mean, I keep telling this to my team. We also take this message forward to our prospects and customers that it's not about technology like AR or AI. AR technology is just the starting point. It's a means to an end. It's not the end goal, right? What it comes down to is the ability to intelligently engage, to collaborate, to resolve issues in the most expedient manner, while providing that amazing customer satisfaction, while empowering your employees. And yes, you get those operational efficiencies. That then becomes the differentiator for the future.
Geez, I love the points you make. It's just fantastic. It really lines up with what our research is suggesting. And I'll borrow a phrase from a podcast I was on, and from a colleague that I really enjoyed the experience sharing the podcast stage. She said that service is the business. And I thought she ended our podcast with that statement, and I thought it was so potent and powerful. And when we look at our research, right, we've done correlating research that suggests when you have executive leadership overseeing the function of service, what are the results thereafter? And our research indicates that when you have that boardroom imperative where service is at the front and center of your organization, and you have that key executive overseeing the function of service, you're likely to achieve a 16.5% higher net promoter score. And when you have executive leadership overseeing the function and you measure customer satisfaction, those two things together, you're 2.3 times likely to witness an increase in customer satisfaction scores. So it shows that you just care and you're present, and you have a leadership function overseeing it, and it really does cascade that service oriented culture across the company. And so I love the points you make there. Can we? You're referencing a story from a field service executive. Can you give us a couple of other examples of leaders of organizations that have done a good job? You're really tightly integrated with Xerox. Obviously, that started as a customer relationship. Now they're the parent company, but
Yeah,
maybe that's a good storyline to build here into the discussion.
I'd love to. Yeah, like so, Xerox is what I call one of the largest AR deployments, actually, with ServiceNow. ServiceNow, by the way, is an investor in the company, very close partner of CareAR. We deeply integrate with ServiceNow as the service management platform. And Xerox for us is an amazing case study, because if you look at it, they have we have close to about 6,000 plus techs in the field today, leveraging CareAR's SXM platform, leveraging augmented reality along with service desk agents trying to remotely resolve the issues as those service calls are coming in. And this is a massive operation at scale, right? 15,000 or so calls coming into the service desk. And what was amazing, John, is that as this was rolled out, we didn't know what to expect at this scale. And what Xerox saw was 50% faster time to diagnosis, right? Customers are calling in. And when you have this conversation with a customer saying that, what used to be before was, yeah, we'll send a tech out and we'll take a look at the issue and maybe it's another day or two. Well, we may be able to resolve your issue if you just take a quick look at it. We're going to send you a quick link. If you don't mind clicking it, you don't need to download anything. We'll have a quick look and we may be able to resolve your issue. Most of the customers are good with that because they don't want another tech coming. They don't want to wait for 2 days. So what we saw was, as a result of that, there was 50% faster time to diagnosis of what the problem, is really, right? That's what Xerox is seeing. And then you look at the amount of dispatches that you're able to cut out. Just within the year, Xerox was able to cut out about 21,000 plus dispatches just by using technology like CareAR. And we talked about numbers, right? A dispatch could be anywhere from $200 to $1,000, depending on the industry and the use case. So, not only are we able to cut out dispatches, which obviously has a positive impact in terms of ESG and carbon footprint, we're able to speed up time to diagnosis. We're able to take out costs. We're able to increase customer satisfaction for our customers like Xerox. And more importantly, the remote resolution rate, 25% plus remote resolution rate without CareAR and compared to with CareAR, right? So these are all numbers that are amazing if you're the head of services delivery or service operations. You look at the numbers both in terms of savings, but also in customer satisfaction because things are getting resolved quickly and faster and better. Amazing, right? That's one example. But the other one that I talk about is a very interesting example. A locomotive company is actually one of the largest locomotive companies here in the States, and given all these supply chain issues that are happening, precision railroading is a very key topic of discussion on the Capitol Hill. And if you look at what they're going through, it's the exact same. It's a page out of Xerox's, what I was telling you about, the aging workforce and how knowledge management for them is such an important issue. The things that you talked about, how do we find knowledge? How do we find content? And that becomes a big distraction for especially the newer employees. So what was interesting is very similar to the case of Xerox. To prove out the case, what they did was they did about 20 different simulative runs, one without CareAR, one with CareAR. And we saw a 58% improvement in mean time to repair. 58% improvement in mean time to repair by leveraging CareAR, leveraging augmented reality and some of these capabilities versus not, right? And so what this sort of technology is not specific to any particular industry or vertical. This can be applied horizontally across so many of these, right? And we have umpteen number of examples. If you look at a data center company, we had a customer, Cyxtera, which is based in Dallas, actually global operations. Data center knock people using smart glasses and being able to serve their end customers in the best possible way. But again, solutions. It's not about smart glasses. It could be about anything. It could be about making sure that problems are resolved with whatever device types they have. It could be a tablet. It could be an iPhone. It could be a browser. It could be an app. It doesn't matter, right? So that's the philosophy that we're taking, and we're seeing amazing sort of lean-ins from these enterprises who are facing the same set of challenges and issues that we talked about, but the results are amazing and encouraging because technology has now progressed to a point where we're able to deliver, we're able to quantify these kinds of benefits across these different KPIs that I just talked about.
Yeah, those are very impressive results, and yeah, we look forward to showcasing some of your customers at the upcoming Smarter Services Symposium. So that'll be a good opportunity to dig deeper into the how. Right? It's always awesome to hear the results, but how did you change manage? How did you move there? And actually, that's our next topic of discussion, which is digital transformation. Right? So 76% of service leaders suggested they were prioritizing additional technology investments earlier this year. So technology investments continues to be a priority. It's the number one priority, quite honestly. Our research data suggests that they're going to continue, but uh, in terms of digging down where they're going to be pointed to, it's really pointed towards that capturing, assimilating, and empowering the organization with that data and information and intelligence that we're talking about. But one of the things that is bothersome is that 41% of those same service executives cite the integration of new technologies into existing process workflows as the greatest inhibitor to realizing enterprise value. So, can you talk a little bit about your approach to integration, adoption? I talked a little bit about, when a technician gets stuck, they're relying on phoning a friend, right? How do we don't want to eliminate that collegiality between technicians in the collaboration, but there's a faster path to finding a resolution through all these technology innovations, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So look, we don't want to eliminate phone a friend, and like I said, the whole COVID pandemic has been that accelerant where people actually got a lot more comfortable being on video. If you think about it, not just with friends and family, but also in a sort of work environment. What we want to do is parlay that sort of same mindset into the enterprise world. And today what I like to call it as, if you have service management platforms like ServiceNow is amazing in that, right? They're the system of action where workflows are created, where when a ticket or a work order or a case is created and raised, getting the right person with the right skill set to the right place with the right part, you know, they're already workflows, and that's what ServiceNow, for example, do well. What happens when that person is on site? Right? That's where the CareAR piece kicks in terms of enabling these service employees to be able to, with the tap of a button, quickly reach into an expert, right? Leverage video, leverage anchored annotations that remain pinned in space so that they're able to put their laptop or put their tablets down, their phones down, and still carry out the instructions that have been just talked about. And those annotations remain in space. Getting that step by step guidance as if that expert was right by their side, doing all of that, and then taking screenshots, taking those recordings, and all of that then gets saved into that service management platform, into that workflow that was created by ServiceNow, for example. Having that integration is fundamental. Rather than having a point solution that's an island on its own, enterprises, their eyes light up. They love hearing the fact that we're not just a siloed implementation, but it all ties back into that work order that ServiceNow already created. So having those screenshots, and even better, even before a tech is dispatched, if a call has happened with, for example, your service desk agent, and they did a video call with using CareAR Assist is what we have. If screenshots are taken, that becomes it's what we call know before you go. The service tech is able to go back, look at the case, look at exactly what has happened, diagnosis pictures, right? That's there as a part of that work order. And then they're able to now, the probability of that person taking the right part, knowing before he goes, he or her, right? And resolving the issue becomes much higher. So it's key when we talk about service experience management. This is not just a layer by itself. It actually sits above service lifecycle management or service management platforms like a ServiceNow, like a Salesforce, and others. So it's not about point solutions. It's not about island implementations. This is all about integrated workflows, getting that 360 back into these systems of action. So the way I like to call it, you have the system of action from a ServiceNow or others, and we become that system of interaction and instruction. system of interaction and instruction, couple that, integrate that with your system of action. Now you have a powerful trifecta. That's really what is the heart of service experience management.
That's outstanding. Yeah, and I just want to reflect. First of all, topic of today's podcast is shifting left, getting closer to the customer, eliminating issues earlier in the customer service experience, right? And Sajeel Hussain is an expert on the topic, joining us from CareAR. So thank you to our listening audience. If you want to react or submit any questions, please feel free to do so via the comment section. Um, in my experience, interacting with leadership of CareAR has been a wonderful experience. Sam serving as a technology advisory board, Noel helping lead go to market, and you preaching all the goodness here to all the customers you're impacting. You really prioritize being at the front of the field service industry. I want to applaud all the good work you've done in a short period of time, becoming a leader in the space. And I read from your website, which I would encourage our listening audience to visit. You can learn more about the organization. You can consume customer testimonials and case studies, all the impact they're making. It's a really good set of resources you can find at CareAR's website. But you strive to be a leader in that service experience management. You keep on bringing up service experience management. And I love in your mission this notion that you really care. It ties really closely into your brand. How far does that reach across the CareAR halls? Can you talk a little bit about the culture?
Yeah, for sure. Look, we there's so much of potential here. When we talk about service experience management, we believe there is such a significant opportunity, not just for CareAR, but for the whole industry, for the whole ecosystem, to lean in and create that amazing impact at all levels. So we at CareAR, we are maniacal about delivering that service transformation for enterprises, and it's all the four things we talked about, right? Empowering your service employees, building those smarter assets, providing connected insights, and what I love, democratizing service experience creation, right? So that's what we're every day we wake up, we think about how do we drive impact on any one of these four pillars. We delivering on these four tenets, and by doing this, enterprises are able to serve their end customers better. Enterprises are able to attract better talent. They're able to empower their employees, and and show that they really care, right? So care, and hence CareAR, it becomes that theme across the board. So we care, CareAR cares, and enterprises care for their employees, but also their customers. So that's what we're all about, and we just love the opportunity that's ahead of us.
That's outstanding. I love that story. It's great. We are super excited to welcome you to our upcoming Smarter Services Symposium. We're going to feature a couple of your customers, including John Perry, the VP of Xerox. What value is most important from your involvement in the Service Council, Sajeel? Our relationship has been growing for some time here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's worked well for you.
For sure. Look, I'd love to. First of all, I want to thank the Service Council for having me on, and it's the platform that something like this provides, right? It's the platform for advocacy. As a company trailblaze in this, what I love to keep talking about, service experience management category. This platform gives us the ability to share our learnings, our thought leadership, but also to learn from other industry thought leaders, right? The trends that you were talking about, the research, the surveys that you've talked about, right? And in learning about the use cases, the adjacent markets, the industries, all of that, coupled with the platform for advocacy and thought leadership is amazing. And by doing all of this, our intent is to drive that technology adoption and bring advanced technology solutions more to the mainstream, so that experience that I was talking about on the consumer world is now, it starts looking very similar, or if not better, in the enterprise world. And we want to do this one enterprise at a time. So really appreciate the collaboration and look forward to the partnership as we go forward.
Yeah, we share the same sentiment, Sajila. The partnership has been very rewarding for us as well. So thank you to you, Sam, Noel, and the whole team. It's been fun to learn more about the impact you're making with your customers. We're going to end with a quick personal passion for you. You talked about table tennis. I'm good at beer pong. I don't know about table tennis. The college days, I was a champion beer ponger. do you do this competitively? Is that
Yeah,
something you're involved in?
yeah, I did. This was a bit of a passion for me growing up, and then I picked up the sport about 7, 8 years back. And anything to do with racket sports is where my passion lies. And competitive table tennis, I'm actually fortunate that there's a really good table tennis scene here in Plano, Texas, Allen, Texas, and I get to enjoy that. You break a sweat, and you feel really good about hitting those. I'll call it ping pong balls, table tennis balls, right? And hey, and especially if you go on a cruise, there's always a table tennis table out there to play and have fun. So again, thank you, John, and thank you everybody for listening in. If you have time, we can absolutely take any more questions.
I wanted to thank our listening audience today for joining today's discussion on Shifting Left, brought to you by CareAR, a Xerox company. Really appreciate Sajeel Hussain being the featured guest here on today's discussion. And this session will be available for consumption via whatever channel you get your podcast from, as well as at the Service Council's website. So thank you for joining today's discussion. Sajeel, I really enjoyed the conversation. We got to do this again.
For sure. Thanks so much, John, and thanks everybody for listening in.